Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kevin Lee Social. Thank you for tuning in. What initially began as an 8-part series interviewing entrepreneurs to share and inspire how they've successfully pivoted during COVID-19, I have decided not only to continue this series, but also to expand on the scope to understand and learn about people's craft, philosophy, the challenges they face in the industry, and their favorite failures that have helped shape them to become who they are today. By going deeper and understanding different thought leaders, businesses, and industries, the idea is to help cross-pollinate ideas applicable in your life and inspire action in this new norm we live in. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Before we get on with the show, today's podcast is sponsored by Altitude Tea. Altitude Tea specializes in rare and exotic teas you can't find on supermarket shelves. Teas grown on high altitudes are more nutrient-dense due to the cold nights and misty peaks that slows the growth of the tea plant, leading to a higher concentration of aromatic oils and richer flavors. They are located in Waterloo and they do private tea ceremonies where you can learn how to drink tea mindfully using a traditional gongfu set and have over 20 varieties of tea to choose from. For our listeners, you can use the code BEYOND at checkout for 15% off. Today we have Marnie Jones. Starting her career at 19, for 10 years, she worked as a management consultant, helping companies from 200,000 to 130 million turnover, getting the most out of their businesses. At 23, she was the head consultant for a small boutique firm in Sydney, where she managed a team of consultants. Marnie held workshops and seminars for over 1,500 people over this time. She was responsible for more than 150 clients across varying industries such as mining, construction, childcare, real estate, accounting, law, not-for-profit, manufacturing, printing, and travel. After finding great success in corporate recruitment over the past decade, Marnie Jones' entrepreneurial spirit and affection for disruption led her to found the people agency, Talent X, in January 2019. Marnie is calling out the traditional, entrenched recruitment industry for their weaknesses, offering consultation, educational services, and solutions to an outdated and broken system. In addition to placing the right talent in good businesses, Marnie has developed over 23 business programs delivered online and in person to over 350 businesses across Sydney. Everyone, please help me welcome Marnie. Hi Marnie, how are you doing today?
Hi Kevin, good thanks.
Thank you for coming on to the show. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now.
Yes, we've had to reschedule, but we made it. We're here.
Yes. The cold has been definitely going around and you and I both had caught it. So anyway, it's good to get the timing right and excited to have you on.
Thank you.
Marnie, I've been doing a bit of research about Talent X and I wanted to start off with the audience what Talent X is about, why is it a people agency, and how does it differ from a traditional recruitment agency?
So my background is management consulting. For over a decade, I have consulted companies from 200 grand to 130 mil turnover. And my specialty was to implement structure and process in a way that the owner can have freedom and can step out of the day-to-day. I then saw a really big need for hiring, started testing my own hiring method based on some previous hiring methods that I was familiar with that I thought I could improve on, and it ended up becoming a full-time job, part-time outside of hours. And I thought, you know what, I really want to make this into like a proper process and a proper agency. So I founded Talent X, which is made of two parts. There's the consulting side, which still maintains the management consulting, and then there's the hiring side. So the reason why it's called a people agency is because we're all about every component needed to do with people that's going to make the company succeed. So hiring, management, organizing, essentially. So that's why it's a people agency.
And it definitely is two elements that's required in that process. I think a lot of people are heavily focused too much on the hiring, not understanding that there is that people management side that's required. In a larger organization, they may have that management side department, but in a lot of smaller
They don't, Kevin. They don't in the big ones either. That's what surprises me every time. It's so funny. We have these ideas about what businesses are like. When we talk to someone, you hear about titles or brands, and then when you peel back that cover and you start to have a peek, you realize a lot of big businesses have very similar problems to small businesses. Yeah, it's definitely, I think something like 58% of managers in Australia don't receive any management training. I think it's higher than that. In fact, I reckon out of all the hundreds of managers I've worked with, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 have had like official management training. So you're right. It's a need.
And yeah, let's talk a little bit more further about that, coinciding with our current situation in Sydney, Australia. The COVID pandemic is still going on around the world, and the employment landscape, at least here in Australia, has completely shifted over the past year and a half. It is actually quite challenging at the moment to hire skilled and loyal staff, myself included. I'm in the hospitality industry, and it's very difficult to hire. How should companies hire in 2022 to build their dream team, coming from the people side perspective that you've just shared?
Yeah, look, it's a really tricky one. There's a lot of, I want to say trends, maybe like mantras coming out about how like it's a very employee heavy push. Like you should negotiate every single pay. I just read last night some woman's advice was to change jobs as much as you can. That was her career advice. And I'm just like, what is happening with this job market? So there's a lot of things going on that make it challenging. I would say my top tips are to first solidify the great stuff that you have. So if you're trying to fill a bucket that has holes at the bottom, you're just gonna struggle forever and infinitely. So the first thing I would do is put a mirror up to myself as an employer and go, okay, am I really a great employer to work for? Why would someone want to work for my business versus my competitor down the road? What is it that I can offer them? I would even go as far as to recommend doing a team audit with your current team. What do you love about this business? What do you not love? Give me a genuine feedback on how you're going and what you need. And you can then start to really formulate. It doesn't mean you should also give to every whim of what staff need, by the way. It's just to give you more information to know where you can improve. And because I tell you something that might make you feel better is really good staff don't necessarily want really great companies. They want companies that are trying to be great, working on being great, can admit when they're wrong, keep their promises. So everything doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the Nike of your industry, but you have to show that you care and that you're implementing things that staff want and need. So that would be the first thing, because if you don't know what people want, you don't have a bargaining chip. So you don't have anything with which to convince or to show a potential candidate that they should work for you versus someone else. So that's probably the first thing I would do. The second thing is I would get really good at ad writing, because ad writing is basically like the digital ads of business. So if you have really great Google ads, you're going to get clients. Ad writing is exactly the same. So at Talent, that's one of our secret spices, you could say, where we essentially have up to 3 times more applicants than normal. Like one ad right now has 9 applicants. The average applicant for that ad is 0. And that's for a lawyer. Lawyer is really hard to hire for right now. So our stats are incredible. Like we have, I'm just going to read them out to you just to give you an idea of how much it can impact. This is on Seek, by the way, which I'm going to talk about Seek in a second.
Yeah.
So we have 61% more clicks on our ad, twice as many applications and twice as many application completions than a typical ad in Seek over the last 6 months. So that's over 200 ads that we've posted. So the reason why this is so important is because you want to fill that funnel as big as you can, Kevin. You want 50 people applying, 100 people applying, so because only 1 to 3% make it. Out of your screening, their screening, you don't like them, they don't like you, they don't like the pay, the location's not what they thought, whatever. There's just so many things that come up. So the first game becomes, I need to get as many applicants as possible. So I would get really good at ad writing. I guess my top 3 tips on writing great ad. Number 1 would be to really define what type of person you want and write the ad to that person and that person only. So it's a very risky way to write ads in a way, because you can, I find if you go and read ads, you'll find that they could suit this person or this person or this person. So you really want to be very specific. You want to write to them. So you want to write, you are the type of person who does blah. You're looking for, you don't agree with the changing high turnover in this industry. You really love hospitality. You're looking for a company. What does this person want? You got to go back to what you think they want. Does your ideal person want to manage your cafes? If so, you write that in there. Like you've been looking for a company that will trust you. You've basically run the restaurants and the cafes you've worked for, but they've never been given you the title. And you write to that person, and it really does cut through when they read it. In every ad we posted, some candidate will be like, I literally applied only because of the ad, because of the way that it was written, because it really speaks to them. So it's important to really put yourself in your ideal person's shoes and go, what would this person need and want? So I would really do that. The other thing that really works for us is writing posting multiple ads in different categories with different titles. So it's obviously a high ad budget, but we post at least 2 ads at any one time in 2 different categories. That becomes harder in something like hospitality. So you've got to be clever. For example, I would post, if I were you, I would trial for a cafe, let's just say, I would trial posting an ad in like the PA category, because you're going to get a lot of young people that want an entry job that maybe didn't consider working in your cafe with the way that you can manage them and the way that your business is or whatever. It's worth a try. So trial different categories and trial different titles. So you might put waitress in brackets, not a normal job. And just that enough, because the first challenge is you've got to get them to click. The next challenge is you've got to get them to read. Then the next challenge is you've got to get them to apply. So you've got to really apply that streamline. So I would play around with titles, be bold. I actually had my Seek account manager call me and say, you shouldn't put different titles, Marnie, because that can impact the way that people find the jobs in searches. And then I was like, yeah, but we find it works. And she said, let me look at the stats. And she's like, oh, wow, you have one of the best ad performing stats I've ever seen. Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't listen to my advice. So the titles, changing them up do really work. Putting them in different categories works. And just one last bit of advice on this I'd say is you've got to realize that when you get a really good ad, that becomes your IP. If you get a really good ad and you treat it as IP, imagine if you had the best ad copy for a digital ad to get more customers in your cafe and it got you the highest ever. Like you would save that ad somewhere on you. You'd be like, this is gold. I'm going to use this again. You can use job ads the same way. So I would treat it as like a trialing. Let's try different things, see what happens. And over time, you build an arsenal of ads that will attract the right person. So that's the first big blood of us. And I could talk to you about this for like 5 hours, honestly. So
no, that's great. It's really some really solid advice, because just quickly recapping what you're talking about, the first thing I heard you were talking about was essentially do an employee audit to check in and to see, are their base needs being met, or what do they require out of the business for themselves? And then obviously moving on to ad copy that you've been explaining so well. As you were talking, I was thinking all the mistakes I made in my ad for this role, all in one ad. And
yeah,
you don't have to be that if you're not that. And it was way too general and broad, whereas understanding writing to specifically one type of person in that persona and going and being bold about it. So there's definitely something to consider there with my
I think, yeah, good. And I think also just remember, like the people try to do all their screening with an ad. They're like, you have to be this and you have to do that. And we have to love you and you have to align with our vision and our values. You just need to get them to apply. And then once they apply, you have an honest chat with them, and then you do your other screening. And from there, you screen them out. So you can't be afraid of the hard work of interviewing. I find people try to get the ad to do the work for them. Don't do that. You'll waste your ad. The game with the ad is I got to get as many applicants as possible. But something else I will say very quickly as well, Kevin, as you're talking, you reminded me that people have really firm preconceived ideas about hiring. So preconceived idea is some idea that people have. For example, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, or good stuff are hard to find, or if you want something done, you have to do it yourself, or all these things that actually aren't true. Like we hire great stuff through Seek, amazing stuff through Seek, but we just write brilliant ads and we're very picky. We have thorough screening. So we actually write brilliant ads. And that's what actually gets it over the line. So my point is be aware of whatever preconceived ideas you have. Like I'm not going to hire anyone over the age of blah, under the age of blah. I had a guy tell me, I'm not going to hire any woman with a small dog, because he'd hired 3 women with small dogs and they were all terrible employees. So now he doesn't hire women with small dogs.
What?
I'm not even making this up. I had one of my clients hired someone only because she had a bold red lipstick. And she was like, she must be bold, which means she'll be good at this job. So she hired her. So you got to remove all these ideas that you have and just basically get someone to apply, sit down and have an honest chat, tell them what you need and want, and see what they need and want, and see if it matches up. And that could give you infinite screening tips. But I think overall, if you just apply that and use that, you'll be fine.
That is bizarre.
Yeah. It's crazy. Also, like something to make small business owners feel better. I know it's really tough right now. It is really tough right now. Like jobs that we were getting 150 applicants for a year ago are getting 30 applicants. So it is harder. But there are still great staff out there. There are great staff who do want to help, who want to work for a business, who want to work hard, who love responsibility, who want to make your life easier, who want to take work off your plate. I just don't want business owners, because of this whole thing, I find they get a bit cynical and then we get a bit defeatist. Then we make these sweeping statements like staff are terrible. And like, I just urge you to just stay optimistic, because there are great staff out there who do want to work for you and work hard and take work off your plate. You just got to be clever in how you attract them.
Just going back to what you were saying, Marnie, I also catch myself falling into that trap of being a bit
cynical.
Being depressed. Yeah, being cynical and being depressed about the whole situation of the hiring market. For example, we've been looking for skilled chefs for quite a period of time. and we just find it very difficult to find skilled chefs. And it's probably due to all the points that you shared, not very good ad writing, and also it is a tough market for us.
It is. Your market is specific. Like, I wouldn't hire for your market if it makes you feel better. I wouldn't. It would be very tough. But look, there's some. Can I just say something else
Please.
that may help? I actually want to show you an infographic, if that's okay, because something that I found as an interesting viewpoint on this. Let me just pull it up for you. Can I share? Is it
Yes.
Okay, great.
Is that
Yes, I can. Yeah, beautiful. So I don't know if you can see this.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so look, when you have a challenging market, you have two options. You can find someone who doesn't need training, who has all the skills. They're more expensive. You've got less candidates. Obviously, there's more hiring time. Like, you take months to find someone, but there's less training time. So they can hit the ground running. They're often poached. So therefore, they're poachable. So people forget that, like, when they try to poach, I'm like, yes, but you've got a poachable staff member now. If they're poached, they're poachable hereafter. And they tend to be a little bit more money centric because they're like, I'm getting offers of blah. So you end up competing over candidates with your competitors, right? So you end up in this like stalemate and this desperation, and you end up then might accept someone that has the knowledge, but the personality is terrible. They're late every day, but you're like, well, I have no one else. And you just end up compromising on all these parts of what you need in a staff member. Your other option is you find someone with transferable skills and you train them. Now, if this is a cheaper wage, you have ample candidates forever. If you have the right company, you have the right brand, you've looked at yourself, you are really offering something special, you've got an exciting future and all of that, you will have ample candidates forever. There's less hiring time, but more training time. They're likely to stay long-term because they're career-centric. They're not money-centric. And then you have the authority over your competitors in your field. So something that I'm hoping, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm hoping this starts a whole wave of like, why do we always assume and demand as business owners that another business should train this person? They put the hard yards in, and we just want this person to magically show up, to be brilliant and everything, to not give me any backflash and any hard things to deal with, and be good at their job. And I'm sorry, but I think if you're really looking to build something, especially you're about to open your third cafe restaurant, congratulations. You're in growth, like you have a very growth mindset. You want to build something here. If you spent the next 6 months instead figuring out the best ads to attract the best type of people that want to get in this industry, and a training program somehow, like maybe you hire a chef, you get trained in just your main menu, let's just say. I'm just making this up. I'm just on the fly, right? And then you train and you work hard to train someone up and give them, and you find someone who's eager and you find someone who's keen. And that can be hard, but that's a separate issue. Let's just say you're good at finding people that aren't lying to you. You can build something that you never feel you're at the whim of the market, ever. It's just more work. And I know that there's so much for us to do as business owners. We've got to worry about sales and management and staff and legal and our own work-life balance and profit. There's so much we have to worry about. But at the same time, if you really put the hard yards in over the next 6 months, you could build a system or a flow that could give you staff forever. And that's just something people don't think about. Like with my business, I do hiring, and my process is very specific. And I actually hire juniors who have had no experience with hiring because I actually don't want their preconceived ideas about hiring. And I can train them up within 3 weeks, and they can start doing hiring for me in 3 weeks from scratch. Like one of my staff, she's amazing. She's so young and she's so green, and she hires for my clients that I've known for 10 years, and they love her, and she's so good at her job because I've spent the time putting the training in. So it's just another viewpoint that, look, might make you go, gosh, more work, thanks, Marnie, but also might make you go, what, that's worth looking at if you feel so stuck. There is another way.
No, thank you very much for sharing that perspective. It's definitely something for me to simmer on about and give it a deep think and see how we can go about doing something similar. Yeah, if I can speak candidly, it's a little bit, I'm in a bit of a gripe still, because the restaurant that we're trying to hire for is in the casual fine dining space, and the chefs we're looking for, we need to start off with at least a certain caliber of experience.
Then you need to find what people in that experience want.
Yeah.
And is it just wage? Is it like career? Is it prestige? Is it your reputation? Because some chefs love the reputation.
That's it. And I'm sure you've seen not just in hospitality, but in so many other industries, the wage rates have just blown through the roof.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the next part, which is being in your unique position, working with so many businesses, Marnie. What are your insights into like profitability and expansion, being this whole market, everyone's wanting more and more money?
Look, it's a tricky one. And I guess it's hard to answer in a sweeping comment because it just depends on the industry. Every industry is very different. And some are actually doing really well since COVID and some are flourishing and others aren't. I think, look, just business owner to business owner, I guess you've got to look at, and it's tricky because you're neck deep. If you don't have 3 cafes, like it's not easy for you to sit back and consider, is this the right business for me? But I would probably, depending what industry you're in, if I was an industry like yours, you've either got to be super, super brilliant at everything and be someone that people talk to and they're like, I want to work with Kevin. Because the clients that I have that don't struggle as much with hiring, we struggle to get the candidates in an interview with them. But once they're in that interview, we know they're going to fall in love with the owner. And they do. And I've had, just last week, we had someone accept a 65 grand job over an 85 grand job. Why? Because of the company and because of the owner. So that's tricky because if you're feeling very stressed and overwhelmed by what you've got on your plate, it's hard to emanate who you need to be and what you want to be or what you should be when you've got all of this stress and this pressure, right? If you're not willing to play the game of being a brilliant employer and a brilliant leader, that's just going to get harder. So if you're unsure of that and you're sitting here going, I just want to get out of this industry, I also would say, and some people are considering that. Some people have been asking me that, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, look, I think if you're in that mindset, I'd actually go away for a couple of days, somewhere you like, somewhere if it's the mountains, the beach, book an Airbnb, turn your phone off, organize, hand over what you can, and sit and dream again and go back to the drawing board, because as business owners, we're dreamers. And this is an unprecedented change. Like the changes aren't, it's not like your purpose has changed. It's not like your passion has changed. It's goddamn, if you're getting a chef now that you have to pay 90 or 100 grand for, that you're paying 60 grand, like that's changing the whole thing. You know what I mean? It changes everything. So be okay with going back to the drawing board and being like, okay, what should I do with this? And is it worth looking at something else? If you're in an industry that's very suffocating and you are in a really tough one. So you have 2 options. You have to either rise above it, be extra brilliant, which means you've got to get out of whatever mental and emotional slump you're in. As business owners, we have to do that somehow. You have to emanate life and passion so that someone talks to you and they're like, God, I love Kevin. I don't even care. Where do you want me, Kevin? I'll do it. Yeah. Or if you're not willing to do that, you can't do that, you're not willing to confront the problems that you're being faced with, go, how can I get out of this in a way that is the best and the easiest, and what do I want to do next, and how can I transfer that over? So that, I know that's 2 very broad things, and obviously we could talk for 3 hours just about this one thing, but I think it's okay to reconsider if your business is the right business. But they're the 2 top line things I would say, if that helps.
Yeah, I love the truth talk, Marnie. That was very heart to heart, I think, from business owner to business owner. So I really appreciate that. It is challenging times, right, for many of us. And I think what you said is very true. You either rise above the occasion or you decide to walk out. And
it starts with your mental viewpoint though, Kevin. That's why even if you wanted to rise above it, still take that 3-day break and get your head right and come back and inject life. You got to remember, all everyone wants in this freaking world is to feel valuable, is to do something worthwhile doing, and to have pleasure in life. So you've got to invigorate. What happens when you walk in the door? Stuff like, oh, Kevin's here, yay. Or are they like, oh, are they indifferent? Are they upset? I don't know. But, you know, what you emanate as a leader is going to dictate who's going to follow you. You know what I'm saying? So it's a really big part, especially when you're looking, like, I know that cultural and leadership, like them loving the owner, is such a key reason why staff choose jobs over money jobs. Yeah. But it's not easy.
Due to the whole challenging situation, I've gone back to the books and I've started seeking some advice from my mentors and gone back to the drawing board. I haven't taken time off, which I am going to, but I didn't get a chance to take a time off yet. But I started to try to understand and see how I can rise above the occasion. I've been thinking about the whole Maslow theories of the Maslow theory pyramid in terms of employees, their base needs, to recognition, to creating meaning for them.
I don't know Maslow theory period. What is it, Maslow
It's
theory
a
pyramid?
American psychologist who's created this.
Ah, yes. I have seen that actually. Yeah.
And Chip Conley, who was also in hospitality, and he used that to convert it into a more easier to understand concept. And yeah, I've had to go back to the drawing books and think, okay, how am I meeting the base needs of my employees? And exactly what you're talking about, checking in with all of them, setting an individual audit to see do they feel like they're being paid enough? Do they feel like they have enough to survive? Do they feel like they're being valued? And then
I would also ask them questions like, because when you focus on pay and do you feel valued, and everyone's always going to feel like they want more pay and they could be more valued. It's like, I would try to really talk to them and be like, what do you want out of life? What are you doing? What makes you happy? Why do you do this job? Why are you in this industry? And what all the owners you work for that you've hated, why did you hate them? All the owners you work for you love, why did you love them? And I would focus more on the reward side of interpersonal rewards and what they actually get out of their job. Because a lot of people talk about the money, but goddamn, people really neglect to look at the value and the reward from working hard and from being valuable and from having responsibility and duty. And these things are honorable for a reason. And I think if you can inspire that in them as well, and because they're always going to say they want more money. That's a good question. You should ask them that, but I would make that 1 out of 40 question.
Yeah, exactly. That's just the part of the process. And then moving on to make sure that they're feeling recognized and like on a weekly basis, to then trying to develop meaning for them. One of the goals that I had reset for ourselves was to be one of the best places to work for in hospitality group in the future. And that's more of a 10-year goal, but we're a long way away from there. But it is something I'd love to strive to. But yeah, just along those lines, thinking of something like that to implement, as well as some of my mentors have shared more management structures, like the EOS system that breaks down different departments, different roles, some structure.
Yes, I know EOS very well.
Yes, so it's trying to increase my learning, develop myself so that I can become a better role model, a better leader for them to follow, in a sense. But since we're on the topic of essentially almost work culture, to have a great team also means to have a great working culture. What are your thoughts on team retention and building a positive but productive work culture?
There's I have a lot to say on that. I've worked with a lot of people, like thousands of staff, and across 28 different industries in 4 different countries. And I've basically realized that management is the hardest role. It is the hardest role. It's not necessarily the most important. Obviously, the founder is important, the team is important, but it's the toughest because I've basically looked at every single question I'd ever been asked about management, culture, retention, staffing, the issues that come up with that. And I've realized that I've created 40 different tools. 40, Kevin. Wow. 40.
That's a lot.
And I kept going. I was like, I'm just going to keep going until I know that each of these tools will answer every question I've ever gotten on management. And I run that as a management course, and I've now gotten to the point where I know it answers every question on management. The reason why I'm saying that is because managers need to realize there are 40 tools that they need to know, at least. This is just my viewpoint. Of course, it's equivalence, but in order to manage well. So trying to get one thing, like you can't apply one concept to one situational person forever. The truth is that you got to do what works, basically. If you're walking along and I say to you, close your eyes and just trust me, one step in front of the other. Left step, good, left step. And you got your eyes like this and you're like, yeah, I'm closing my eyes. That's fine. You'll make it. You'll do well. But if there's a cliffside there and I say left foot, right foot, you're going to fall off. Mm-hmm. So a lot of managers that do well are very nimble. They look at each situation differently. They don't paint the same situation with each brush. And they also don't treat every staff member the same in terms of respect and values. But some staff need a hard word and they respond really well with, you know what, Kevin, I just need you to cut that out and I need you to do your job. I'm sorry if that's really rude. I'm sorry if that upsets you. Some people respond to that more than, do you think maybe, and you might, and would you maybe think about it? So you've really got to focus on the person, the situation at hand, and not do everything the same. A key tool, one of my favorites out of the 40, is something that I've talked about a couple of times, but it's very overarching, very helpful concept, and that's the 7 manager archetypes. So I've discovered that there are 7 manager identities. So an archetype is like a personality or an identity. that a manager needs to be very good at and swap at any one time and apply to the situation at hand. So you can't be them all at the same time, but you have to be able to swap them. And I find that to be the most comprehensive tool, because that will create, you've got to realize what culture is. It's a feeling. And it's like, how do you create a feeling? And God, there are so many answers to that question. It depends. Are you structured? Do you have a strategy? Do you reward them properly? Do you meet too much? Do you meet too little? Do they know what their roles are? Do they like each other? Have you hired anyone toxic? Like, just off the top of my head, there are 50 questions that I would ask to determine and help you figure out how to improve a culture. So as an overarching concept, knowing the 7 archetypes can be super helpful. So the first manager archetype is the pusher. If you can't push as a manager, which is one of the weakest we have in Australia, we don't like to push.
Yep.
But a pusher is saying basically, Kevin, I got it. I'm really sorry that you're not liking this right now. I've tried to explain to you why this is important. It's okay if you don't understand. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to need you to do it. I'm just going to need you to do it. And I'm going to need you to do it by 3:00 on Friday, whatever. It's just pushing. The next archetype is the mentor. So the mentor doesn't tell, the mentor asks. Mentor will be like, what do you think you should do, Kevin? You come to me and I go, what would you do if I wasn't here? What would you do if I was in a car accident? Or how do you think you should solve this? Or come on, you're smart. You can figure this one out. Or I'm paying you to do that. So I want you to come up with that. I want you to go have a cup of tea, figure it out and come back to me. So the mentor archetype is really helpful. And you use that probably most of the time. It's one of the most more used ones. You then have, so you have the pusher, you have the mentor, you then have the trainer. So you have to be able to train. This is something that a lot of managers forget. They just put someone in a role and they expect them to do well at it. You have to be able to train on the fly and not make a big deal out of it. So if you want to do 10-second training, 10 minute, 1 hour, 10 hours, you have to be very good at knowing how to instantly train someone. Like, okay, I'm going to give you a very brief overview, Kevin. Here's how you wash a car. So you just always need to go in circles and you need to work from the top down. Just do that and I'll come back to you in a couple of days. And then you can go deeper and deeper, and then you can add theory, and you can build a course, and you can do all these things. But you have to be good at training someone. So it's the trainer archetype. You then have the organizer. So if you can't look at your area and go, how am I going to organize this to improve, or how can I restructure this? It's going to affect your culture a lot. A lot of staff do not like unorganized. Only very rarely do staff like chaos. You know what I mean? Most staff love to be structured and organized. So you have to be good at organizing. You then have the innovator. So the innovator is there to, should we add a new product or service? Maybe we should implement this whole new thing. Should we do this brand new, I have this big idea. And innovation is important, but it can also be done too much. So you don't want to innovate too much because you can lose what works. When you get someone who innovates too much, you can lose sight of, this has worked for 10 years, why change it? So you got to be careful with when you innovate. And then the next one is the firefighter. So the firefighter is there to make sure that any fires that arise are put out, and they're put out quickly. The problem is that if you firefight too much and you constantly solve your staff problems and you don't push, this is the thing, some managers only firefight. So then you end up wearing all your staff's hat and doing all your staff's jobs, basically. So we've got the pusher, the mentor, the trainer, the organizer, the innovator, the firefighter, and the last one is the police officer, another one that Australians hate. The police officer is, don't do that. You walk in, someone's on Facebook, you bring it up straight away. You like blow the whistle. You're a whistleblower. You're like, stop that, don't do that. And it has to be done. This is the key with the police officer archetype. It has to be done as you see it. If you walk in and you've asked them to clean the area and the area's not clean and you walk past, you've lost your presence. You've got to have a feeling like a police officer. When a police officer walks past, don't we all go, oh, am I doing anything illegal? That feeling has to be created with staff, but also you have to have the mentor and the pusher. So the key overall is if you can be the right archetype with the right situation with the right staff member. Some people like pushing, as I said, some people like mentoring. You can be each archetype too much or not enough. So there is a balance, and there's a whole art form to this. This is a whole topic, but overall, if you can work with each one and get good at each one, you will have staff that love you. Because when you think about high school, what teacher did you love the most? You didn't love the one that let you get away with everything, that never pulled you up. You loved the one that was firm but affectionate, the one that you knew liked you, but they didn't let you get away with things. So that's how you be as a manager will dictate how long someone will stay with you, and will dictate how much they communicate, how much they care, and the culture. So we always talk about staff and rewards and all that, but I think culture is created by how the manager is being and what archetypes the manager is using.
That's quite a lot to take in for a lot of people, but it requires.
Look, I'm not a simple gal, Kevin. I'm sorry. I can't give you simple answers.
It's great because it just requires a lot of awareness and a lot of training as well. Obviously, that's only a portion of the 40 tools plus.
That's exactly my point. It's just to give you an insight. People say, what's management? And I'm like, do you have 10 years to talk about management? Because that I just did a brief overview, which is a module that takes about 2.5 hours to teach properly. And that's one of 40 that you need to have to answer all the questions about management. So what you just said is exactly right. And that can make managers listening feel terrible, but I hope it makes you feel better to know that you're already probably doing a great job and you probably use 10 of them. Imagine if you used 40. So use it as a good thing to be like, man, I'm doing good because I don't know any of this. And I have good management skills.
Great. So how do business owners, managers, or other people looking to learn more about this 40 tools course that you've put out, where do people go and find that? Or do you teach that, right?
Yeah. So I do them currently only in person. I'm in Sydney. So I don't like Zoom teaching. I don't like teaching on Zoom. So I do it in person and it's a 4-week course. So people can reach out to me, go to talentx.com.au and put an inquiry there. You can track me down on LinkedIn and message me. I am looking later in the year to record the course and make it an online course. But yeah, it's the most fun. I've delivered a lot of courses in my years and it's the most fun. And I've just had the attendees of the last one I delivered. One of them guys said it was the best course experience he's ever had. It's so helpful because now literally at the end, we do this full checklist that asks a series of questions. If there's a problem, ask these questions and you'll have a solution. Is it this? Is it that? Have you been pushed? Have you pushed too much? Are you wrong archetype? Have you put in a reward? Have you done this? Have you done that? So by the end of it, you know that you have every tool to do it. I'm hopefully going to get it online for everyone and make it as affordable as I can. But yeah, they can reach out to me if they want. But it's just also a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes for people to check out. And we've covered so much already. I felt like it's gone through very quickly, but there is a lot to digest and uncover when people re-listen to this. So I'm going to head towards the more tail end of the conversation of the podcast. Are you excited about any upcoming projects in later this year or next year?
Yeah, I'm looking into building a software that can help with the day-to-day management of small business, which I feel there is a big gap, and I'm looking at building that. And I'm in talks with a potential business partner, which is very exciting. But we'll see where that goes. That's one of those things that if it may not happen because it's a big barrier to overcome, but that's one of my key, most exciting projects.
That is super exciting. Someone with your knowledge and your expertise, even the 40 tools and so on, if it can all be somehow collated into a software for business to use, I think it would be very valuable. Do you have any morning or evening routines?
Oh, no. Other than cuddling my cat in the morning, I'm not a morning person. Other than cuddling my cat, who's hairless, so he needs to come under the blanket. Other than that, in the morning, no. In the evening, though, I do always watch YouTube before I go to bed, and I really enjoy it. And I know it's like bad for me and I shouldn't be watching a screen before I go to sleep. But yeah, I love watching YouTube. Typically, I love watching like Dragon's Den and stuff like that. And I find that it inspires me and it actually gives me things to do. I'll be listening to a pitch and I'll be like, that's a good idea. Or it reminds me of so and so. I find it invigorates me for the next day.
Do you have a favorite book you'd recommend?
No, I don't really read very much. I hate being asked that because I feel like a fool. You hear all these things of the best managers in the world read 10 books a month. And I'm like, oh man, like I've read EOS, I've read Traction, and I've read a few of the classic business books. The Shining, I'm reading The Shining right now. So that would be my recommendation.
What did you think of Traction, by the way?
I love EOS. So what's a funny story about EOS, I worked in a consulting firm with a guy called Daniel Davis. And Daniel Davis and I worked together to implement this management structure that we delivered with our clients that I explained earlier. He wanted to change from that management system due to licensing issues. And he met someone at Richard Branson's Necker Island who introduced him to EOS. And he now runs or is in charge of Australasia of EOS and is an EOS integrator or implementer. I always get them confused. And I have maybe 4 other friends who are EOS integrators or implementers. It's a really great system. It's very useful day to day. It's very pragmatic. It's very simple. There are a few aspects about it that I find can create some problems, but not every system is perfect. And as far as management systems go, it is the best out the market in terms of availability and ease of access and implementation. It's a good system overall. Like, I really do, and I respect it very much.
That's good to hear. That's something I'm working on
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah.
Are there any new beliefs or behaviors that have had a positive impact in your life in the recent years?
Beliefs or behavior? You ask good questions, Kevin.
And you don't have to answer straight away. You can have a good think about it. It's okay.
In management and ownership, I've become a little bit more unapologetic about some things, like not tying myself to a decision. I find as humans, once we make a decision, we feel we have to execute that decision until the end. And sometimes we're not aware of the decisions we make. If we get heartbroken at the age of 15 and we decide we're never going to be happy in a relationship, and then some stuff's like really deep seated and hard to find, but the decisions about things like, it's okay if your business isn't working in some area. Just because you said 2 years ago that you were going to be a millionaire from this business, something's changed, now it's not working, doesn't mean that you failed necessarily. So I find that it doesn't affect me as much anymore. Like, I've changed a lot about my business. I used to have certain guarantees that I don't have anymore, that I felt like I had a hiring guarantee that we'd replace them for free within 12 months. And I felt like a failure when I canceled that guarantee. I was like, what is the point in doing all of this? Literally in my office here, I was like crying on that table, on that couch there. And my co-director and my sister, Maddie, were like crying together. We're like, what is the point of all this? And then obviously once you go through that, I realized like, it's actually okay to change things and experience something new and to adjust as a business. So you have to be like that. So that's something that's really helped me not really care as much in a good way.
And if you could only send one single line of SMS text to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
5 years ago, I'd be like, because that's when I was living in Melbourne at the time and I was working for someone. I did the consulting. I left work for someone else and I was in this huge Q&A of like, do I work for myself again? Should I consult? I was in this huge life situation. And I would have sent myself a text that says, go as far as you can see, then you'll be able to see further.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great one. And finally, Marnie, how could people reach out or learn more about you or Talent?
You can call me. You can come visit me at my house. You can harass me on the street. I work in Ultimo. You can come see my office. You can go to our website, talentx.com.au. You can check me out on LinkedIn and connect with me, and we can have coffee. You can call, whatever you feel like doing.
Marnie, I've genuinely enjoyed this conversation with you today. I love your energy. You're so vibrant. You're cheerful. You make me smile. And not only that, you're a wealth of knowledge, and I have a lot still to learn from you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.